Howdy, Dennis Bradford here. Let's think some about being, feeling, and doing better. What about time? I invite you to wonder about time. Augustine, the first great Christian philosopher, asks, quote, "What is time? If no one asks me, I know. If I wish to explain it, I know not." End quote. From Confessions, Book 11. If God created everything and time is real, God created time. How? Furthermore, Augustine asks, quote, "What was God doing before then? How could God have been doing anything before there was time?" End quote. Also, is time divisible into three parts, namely past, present, and future? Augustine's chief intellectual project was to make the welter of Christian ideas coherent, internally consistent. To do that, he naturally leaned on his predecessors, particularly Plotinus and the neo-Platonic tradition, as well as, of course, on Paul. All geniuses stand on the shoulders of their predecessors. Plato was the first great philosopher in the Western tradition. He didn't just pop into existence. He not only had Socrates as the teacher, but he also learned from the pre-Socratic philosophers of ancient Greece. The best of those was Parmenides. Plato so admired Parmenides that he not only put him as a character in his dialogue Parmenides, but he also made him critical of the ideas of the young Socrates. Parmenides argued that although it seems to exist, change does not exist. All difference is impossible. It's a delusion. There cannot be, for example, before and after. This implies that, although it seems to exist, time does not exist. Does time pass? Is it real? Does it move? Is there, as there seems to be, a temporal sequence of events? Newton had an absolute view of time, whereas Leibniz had a relational one. In the first antinomy of his great Critique of Pure Reason, Kant argued that reason is impotent to decide the conflict between the world has a beginning in time and the world has no beginning. For him, time is a pure intuition. We experience the world as being in time because of the way our minds work. We can't help it. This doesn't mean that the world is in time. In the 20th century, McTaggart argued for time's unreality. Einstein connected the ideas of space and time into the unified idea of space-time. There's universal agreement that the so-called laws of nature, the equations of physics, are time-symmetrical. However, if that's so, why are there only traces of the past and not also of the future? The problem concerning the nature and reality of time is a fundamental, conceptual, in other words, philosophical problem. Before watching this video, it may never have occurred to you to question the reality of time. I'm not only trying to get you to question your own beliefs about time, I'm trying to weaken your attachment to all your fondest beliefs. Why? Again, it's so that you can step back and examine them directly. Do you have any emotional problems? Do you have any real problems? Is that even possible? Yes, you seem to have problems. Are they real or only appearances, seemings? Problems presuppose time. If time is unreal, so are all problems. What? You have lots of complaints, lots of problems. Why, just last month you fell and tore a rotator cuff muscle in your shoulder. It's been painful ever since. It disturbed your sleep. Whether you have surgery on it or not, you'll have months more pain. Now there's a problem. Really? Isn't it just a story you're attached to? Is shoulder pain a problem right now? No, if you feel any pain right now, it's just pain. It's not a problem. To make that pain into a problem, you need to give it a beginning, middle, and end. When you do that, you make it into a story and then attach to it. That apparently is what you've done. Guess what? Sages don't do that. That's why they don't have problems. Sages live in their lives, not in their thoughts or in their stories. Life only occurs now, in the present moment. To live in your life is to be present. In other words, fully conscious now. If you are absorbed by thoughts about the past or future, you are not fully present. For example, Eckhart Tolle, quote, "Presence removes time," end quote, from the power of now. Also, quote, "Time and pain are inseparable. When you let the past or future obscure the present, you are creating time," end quote. To be free of time is to be free of the psychological need of past for your identity and future for your fulfillment, end quote. Whether you believe that time is real or not, learn to detach from it if you want to live well. The more you detach from your thoughts about past and future, the better you'll live. Similarly, Tolle writes in A New Earth, quote, "Time is in your mind. The elimination of time is the only true spiritual practice," end quote. Wow! Quote, "Consciousness itself is timeless," end quote. If you have turned an event such as falling and tearing a rotator cuff muscle into a problem, please stop doing things like that to yourself. Start being kinder to yourself. The only problems are in our minds. They do not exist outside us. Michael Singer, quote, "Events are not problems. They're just events. Your resistance to them is what causes the problem," end quote. From The Untethered Soul. David R. Hawkins, quote, "All problems exist only in the mind of the observer as a result of taking an arbitrary point of view," end quote. From The Eye of the Eye. Whenever we take a position and attach to it by believing it, we create resistance. That resistance is what creates problems. The resistance is only in our minds. The problems are only in our minds. Do you want to live without any problems? Stop taking positions and attaching to them. Learn to let life flow. The value of wondering about time is not merely conceptual. Despite the false beliefs of many people, wondering about philosophical topics, such as the nature of time, can have practical benefits in terms of reduced suffering. This is true for other such topics as well. Meanwhile, the question of the values recommended by sages is still on the table. Let's consider it in the next video. Let's end emotional distress.